Just watch the GroupMe on your phone and whisper to me if something's wrong.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to come on in. Hey everybody, and welcome to our 6th webinar in our webinar series for 2020 fall. Today we're going to be talking about how to take a college tour, and we're going to be using UTSA as an example and using uvisit.com. Just to introduce myself, my name is Evan Taylor Adair, and I'm the 9th and 10th grade advisor at Mathis High School. All of my coworkers at Mathis and Sinton are on this call, and they're all participating in this effort. So if you're from Sinton, if you're in the upper grade levels, please stay around and listen. Hopefully it'll be useful information for everybody. Like I said just a moment ago, the focus of tonight's presentation is going to be on how to take a college tour, and what kind of questions to ask, and why you should be thinking about doing a virtual college tour. And hopefully a lot of the things that I explained will transition well into an in-person tour once the pandemic is over and you're able to go on those. So first off, let's talk about what is a college tour. It's basically, this may be obvious to some people, but it's basically just walking around and getting a feel for campus. There's two different kinds. There's self-guided, where you just kind of walk around yourself. You can ask people on campus questions, and it still counts, but you won't get quite as much information, and you've got to kind of get it all yourself. This is more like just exploring for yourself and seeing it for yourself. Or a guided tour, which is sort of what an online tour is most of the time, because there are recordings that go along with it and tell you things about the school, things you ought to know, and lead you around, basically. The purpose of a college tour is to find out things you can't read online. So obviously you can see the school's enrollment percentages, how hard it is to get in, things about the campus, what kind of facilities they have, but you can't really get a feel for what the vibe is on campus. And another thing that it can show you is how big the campus feels when you're on it, what the population of students looks like, that kind of stuff, right? So I would say that touring a campus, virtually or not, is one of the most important things you need to do before going to a school, because there are a lot of unlearnable things about a school you'll only pick up when you go on a tour. So we're going to be starting with uvisit. It's uvisit.com/college search, and I'll post it in the chat at the end. But the first step is to create an account, and I wanted to walk you guys through this before we actually go and take the tour ourselves. So you're going to need to go to the website, which I'll list the URL for, choose students and parents, and then it'll ask you to create an account. But before that, it's going to ask you to search for a school. So just type in wherever you want to visit right here. It's pretty smart. If you put in, like, for example, UTSA, it'll automatically pick up that you mean University of Texas at San Antonio. And it'll ask you to create an account now. So we're just going to continue with email. I've already done this myself, but if you guys wanted to do this on your own, then you'll have to create an account real quick. And here's what it looks like. So you'll just be a prospective student and you can put your email in here and enter. And that's pretty much all. I think it's going to ask you to create a password or something after this, but don't worry too much about it. So moving on, I'm going to change what I'm sharing so I can actually show you guys UVisit itself. Okay, so here we are. We just typed in the University of Texas at San Antonio, and we'll get a couple different options. It's going to try to automatically fill in other schools with similar titles. So if you start seeing things you didn't search for, odds are the school you wanted to tour isn't available on this particular website. And that's okay, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's not going to be a problem. There are other places to tour. But let's go ahead and select UTSA here since it is listed. And I'm going to reshare that one more time because I want you guys to be able to hear the sound for this one. Okay, here we go. We can choose between the downtown campus and the main campus. So here we go.
Welcome to the University of Texas at San Antonio, San Antonio's largest public university. My name is Daisy, and I'll be your tour guide today. Before we get started, let me explain the many ways in which you can explore our beautiful campus. You can click on the front-facing arrow to start walking around our campus.
Right,
you can also jump to the next stop by clicking on the Next Stop button. If you already know where you want to go, you can select any location by using the list or by clicking directly on the map. Lastly, remember that you can explore any location in more detail by clicking on the 360 photos or video icons. Founded in 1969,
Okay, and then she's going to start talking to us about the history of the school, which is interesting and all, but that's not why we're here right now. Down here, there's a little tab where you can see relevant photos. They have 360 views of classrooms and things like that. And they also have a little hype video for the school. So I'll play a little bit of that. You're going to see a lot of this, especially if you're checking out a bunch of different colleges. They always try to sell it with a video like this. So here you go. Here's the first couple seconds. There you go. You can watch the whole thing yourself if you want. The idea is they've just got some eye-catching statistics about the school, photos. That's useful and all, but that's the kind of stuff that doesn't really paint the full picture of what the school's like. So that's why I always try to watch that, yeah, but also get a good look at campus as well. Okay, so let's move on. We already kind of explained the directions here, but if you need to change the language that the speaker is in, the UTSA tour actually has a Spanish voiceover too, so that's pretty useful. Moving along, and we're going to leave her voice off for the rest of the tour. If you did it yourself, you can leave it on. It's your preference. This is the Welcome Center. So this is the first place you want to check out on any school's campus because this is where you begin your tour. If it's a guided tour, this is where you're going to meet your tour guide. And almost all college campuses have something like a Welcome Center. So this is what we're going to look for. And right down here, this is where you would click to look inside. Here's what the interior looks like. Not that exciting, but there you go. You can see it. One thing that we can look at as we kind of navigate through here is the size of the campus, how far apart buildings are. Obviously, you're not walking the campus yourself, but you can tell as we go on ahead, things are a little far apart. And you may notice that it's pretty sloped. UTSA is a little hilly. So there's things like that that you'll really learn from doing tours and virtual tours as well. And one important thing to think about is that if buildings are far apart, if you have to move from one side of campus to the other, you may need to know if there's like scooters on campus, buses, and these are the kind of things you can start asking your tour guide as you go. So we're going to move on ahead. This is the back of the main building. While you're taking a tour like this, you want to be kind of like getting a vibe for like how the students look, how happy they are, how the tour guide is acting. This may sound silly, but a lot of the times you can tell a lot about the quality of student life by the attitude of the tour guide. Generally a happy tour guide, because tour guides at colleges are current students normally. So if they have a pretty good attitude about it, they seem genuinely excited to talk about their school, they're probably having a pretty good time there. And you can generally tell if students just look absolutely miserable walking around versus if they look like they're in a fairly good mood. Could also just be the weather, especially in Texas, but it's definitely something to think about. So I can click you through every single little slide here to show you the whole place, but I'm just going to skip ahead to the library. Here's the Peace Library at UTSA. I would tell you a bunch of stats about the building and when it was founded. That's what your tour guide would do, but that's not really my area of expertise. So let's just look inside. So they have their computer lab here, food court. One thing to think about with schools is as you're on your tour or on your virtual tour, be looking at like what kind of dining options they have. A lot of schools have stuff like Chick-fil-A on campus, Starbucks, that's great and all. You're probably not going to be eating Chick-fil-A for every meal, I'm guessing. So it's a really good idea to ask your tour guide what kind of dining options they have. If you're vegetarian, something like that, then make sure that they have options for you you can eat. You want to be eating more than just a salad every day, you can. And you can look for areas like this too. Most of the time, libraries, stuff like this will have lounge areas, study areas. This is really great because this is probably where you're going to spend a lot of time. Courtyard areas like this too are nice. You really just want to get a feel for it. Like, does it look comfortable to be here? These are the kind of things that I look for if I'm on a tour. Okay, moving out of the library. Let's move on to the business building. I don't know the way, so I'm going to cheat and skip right to it. So here we are. What you got to know about college campuses is most of the time it's split up. You've got your engineering building, your business building, liberal arts building sometimes is all grouped into one. For the most part, your classes are going to be focused on whatever building your major is residing in, unless you're a freshman. A lot of times they just don't have room to fit all the business freshmen in the same building, or you'll have general classes just like history, English, and you may end up anywhere. You might end up in like the basement of the library, but they have lecture halls all over campus. And I want to show you what one of these lecture halls looks like. Here's one. This may surprise you, but this auditorium, I would honestly say, is medium sized for a large school. A school like UTSA, a school like Texas State, like UT, these schools are enormous. And when they're trying to cram a bunch of freshmen into an intro class like English 101, they're going to normally have like 200, 300 students. That's very likely. So this is where you really have to start thinking about, am I okay with a big school? At a certain point in your freshman year, if you go to one of these large schools, you're going to end up in a big building like this, a big classroom. You're one out of maybe 300 students. You can't really get that much one-on-one time with the professor or the teacher in class. So it's times like this where you really want to think like, is this the right match and fit for me? Is the school good? Is it going to match my preferences, how I learn best? But it's not all bad news at big schools. You do have smaller classes when you start to go farther and farther into your degree plan, because there will be fewer and fewer people who need that class. So eventually you may have a 10-person class and it'll be just like you're at a small school. But just be aware that there will be some giant classes with rooms even bigger than this. So we're heading out of the business building now. I would say one of the biggest perks of college life is that you get to plan your own schedule. So that's why a lot of times it's not like high school where you walk with all your friends to your next class together. Most of you have the same classes and it's just back to back to back. That's just not how it works in college. You actually get to plan your own schedule with a little bit of freedom. So for example, you have a 5-day class week, but maybe you concentrate all your classes on your Mondays, your Wednesdays, and your Fridays. Then you have Tuesdays and Thursdays with only one class, and you have the whole day to study, work a part-time job, something like that. This is the freedom that college classes allow you. In addition, it's better than just that. You actually have much fewer classes too. Hold on, let me get rid of this notification. It's going to be telling me to apply online, but we're not ready for that yet, so we're not going to worry about it. Let's go to this next building. You schedule normally between 12 and 15 hours of class per week, which kind of sounds like a lot, but when you think about it, you guys are in high school for like 45 hours per week, and that's back to back. You never get to go home in between. In college, you may have a class at 10 a.m., lasts until noon. You don't have another class till 4. Some people intentionally design their schedules so they don't even have class on Friday. Then it's really easy. You basically have a 3-day weekend. Yes, you have to study more. You study a heck of a lot more in college than you do in high school. But I'd say even when you add the two together, it still feels like you have way more freedom in college. I'm not going to take you guys on the entire tour right now. But what I will say is that there are some more things you should be asking and thinking about while you're on your tour. Number one, you should try to get familiar or at least learn a little bit about the city that the college is located in. There are two big distinctions between colleges. There's the college in a college town, and then there's the college located in the middle of a big city. And when you travel outside of the campus, things are just unrelated to the school, right? So just to give you an example, UT and Austin, I wouldn't call Austin a college town. There's a lot going on in Austin besides what happens at UT. Then you have schools like Sam Houston and Huntsville, where it's a rather small town and the college is the biggest thing there. So when you head off campus, there may not be as much going on. Local events, things to do on the weekend. So that's something to think about while you're on a tour is like, am I okay with just being on campus 24/7, even on weekends? Like when you leave your dorm, like you can go do things around campus, but you may not have like a city to explore. Or maybe you want to be in a big city like San Antonio here, where there's so much to do, right? So these are all things that you guys can think about. Another thing is that you get benefits from being a student at certain schools. And this is what you can ask about. Say UT, you get free bus passes. So you can travel anywhere around the campus. Like if you have a part-time job and you need to get to it, you don't have a car, that's just fine. Free public transportation. So let's abandon UTSA for now. I don't want to give you guys the whole tour and spoil it. And let's see if I can get to my other tab here. So the next website I'm going to be showing you guys, well, I won't show you it yet. First, let me show you a little example of what it looks like when you can't find the school you're looking for, right? Let me share my screen again. Okay. Let's say we want to check out, how about A&M Corpus Christi? So we'll just abbreviate it here. Click on the school, search for it. And we get our first result, Texas A&M Central Texas. So it's probably not here. A&M Corpus Christi isn't listed. So we have to think, what's another site we can use? Well, I'll give you one example. You can go to Campus Visits or campustours.com. And this is sort of like a big database of tours. So if we need a virtual tour, we can always come here. Help us find, gotta type out the full thing. Texas A&M Corpus Christi, here it is. It comes up right here, see a few brief stats. And so you can see a map, you can see their website, and here we see virtual tour. The real reason I want you guys to see this is because not all tours are the same, and you may have to do a little bit of work to figure out how each tour works, but I want you to be familiar with at least 2 of them. Okay, here's their virtual tour. Okay, start. And here it is. As you can see, it's much less fancy. There's no voiceover for this one, I don't believe, but you can at least click around to different buildings, and you could even look at the map here, and it is 360. So you can check out the school. And it looks like you can also schedule a tour in person here and get more info here. So this is what their tour looks like. I'm not going to walk you through the whole thing because we're running out of time. Oh, dang, look at that. One thing I regret not showing you guys is the dorms at UTSA, because that's always fun to look at. That's something I would definitely check out. The housing options are important. You want to be living somewhere where you're comfy. So let me move on back to my presentation real quick. Okay, here we go. So, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our social media pages. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to be notified about when we do our next live stream. If you want to go back and watch some of the older ones that we did, we have a Facebook page here, Twitter, Instagram, you know. Okay, we got one question. Okay, College Station, Texas A&M, and Stevensville, Tarleton would be some other good examples of college towns. Yeah, so the student asked, Desiree asked, so like what's a college town? Like what college is a college town? Okay, so yeah, I think that Huntsville is a really good example of a college town. Sam Houston State is like the biggest thing happening in Huntsville. The benefits are that basically the town is pretty centered around the college. It's very likely that you're going to get benefits at local businesses, things like that, for being a student. The downsides are there's not a lot of like other big things happening in the city. So I would say that it's maybe less fun to explore, and maybe not as many job opportunities in the area too, which can be a downside. And we have another question. So are in-person tours still going on? They're not. And if someone offers you one, honestly, I would be a little cautious of it right now, but hopefully they'll be able to start up soon. But that's why virtual tours are important. Yeah, I think it's a great idea to call the campus anyway. It doesn't hurt. They'll probably tell you the same thing that I did, but feel free to give them a call. Speaking of calling campuses individually, if anybody's interested in hearing more about UTSA, I'm going to drop that link to contact the UTSA college rep in a moment, so you guys can ask her any questions you have if it isn't covered in that whole tour that I just showed you guys. Okay. Anyway, that was a ton. Thanks for listening. If you want to schedule a meeting to talk to your advisor, whether you're at Mathis Sinton, 9th through 12th, your advisor's email will be here. And we're going to drop the link in chat that has the nest of links to all of our schedule meetings pages, so you guys can set one up yourself. And in addition, we're going to link the attendance form. So if you guys wouldn't mind, if you sat in for the webinar, please sign in on that. And other than that, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. You guys have a great night, okay?